We cannot escape our podcast creators. I keep saying this. You can't erase that which made you. Even when they are gone, their RSS feeds remain.
It's very true, folks. RSS lives forever.
That's right.
Welcome to Science Fiction Book Club, a podcast for bookworms and stargazers. In every episode, we dive into the pages of our favorite science fiction novels to break down the big ideas, ask the nerdy questions, and maybe learn a bit about ourselves along the way. I'm Obssa, and joining me as always is the one and only Abu.
That's right. An AI nobody. You've never seen my body. You've never seen my face. I'm just a voice in your ear, folks.
The visual is entirely a deep fake.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Obssa. So this is interesting. We originally were going to do Neuromancer in this time slot for the season. We were going to end our season on Neuromancer. But we still don't know when that Apple TV adaptation is coming out. And we want to someday, and it's looking like someday in 2026, but not today. And we want to time our coverage of the book to coincide with the Apple TV show coming out. So what we've decided instead is to cover this book, Death of the Author, which is getting a lot of eyeballs right now because we'll talk about it later in the episode, but it has won the Locus Award for 2026 for Best Novel, and it is up for a Hugo later this year for Best Science Fiction Novel in 2026. So this is a highly rewarded and very positively reviewed book, and we figured now would be a great time to dig into it ourselves. And I'm excited. I look forward to it.
Definitely. A little bit of housekeeping up front. As Abu just said there, we're obviously covering the death of the author. And in this episode, the first 17 chapters. So spoiler warning, please have read that first section. And as always, we encourage you to read along with us, share your thoughts, email us at sci-fi bookclubpod@loreparty.com. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/sci-fi bookclubpod. We post free reading guides, discussion questions, bonus clips, bloopers, all that good stuff on that Patreon. And of course, it's also where you can find our Discord, where we like to keep these nerdy sci-fi discussions going with fellow readers in our community.
That's right. And you don't have to rush to jot those things down. All of those links are in the show notes below, so check them out after you're done listening. Now, folks, here's the game plan for today's episode. The same as always when we cover a book. We'll start by summarizing the chapters from today's assigned reading. Again, that's chapters 1 through 17, roughly the first third of this novel. Then, Obssa, you and I will share our impressions so far, how we're feeling about the book, what's working for us, what isn't, what we think is going to happen, all that good stuff. And then finally, later in the episode, we're going to dive deep with our sci-fi analysis. And as we like to do when we start a new book, today's sci-fi analysis is actually going to be the meta. We're going to talk about the author and the publication history of this book. So all of that is coming up on today's episode. But before we get into it, let's take a quick break. Gather yourselves, folks. When we come back, we're diving into Death of the Author.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Stock up and save big on shoes, tops, dresses, accessories, and more must-haves for summer. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Welcome back, folks. Okay, as promised, let's dive into our chapter summaries for today's reading. And this is going to be interesting, Obssa, because this book is told in 3 very distinct layers, which makes trying to summarize it chapter by chapter quite the challenge. So instead of doing that, how we're going to tackle this is we're going to basically summarize chapters 1 through 17, 1 layer at a time.
And we'll start with the present day layer told from Zelu's perspective, beginning with the storyline that ends up being the primary narrative and backbone of this novel, where we're introduced to our protagonist Zelu on her sister's wedding day. And we immediately get a sense of who she is. She's 32 years old, paraplegic, an adjunct professor, and the black sheep of a large Nigerian American family.
Yeah.
Her dark mood at the wedding is only made worse when she gets a call from her boss at the university. She's been fired after her students filed, admittedly, not the first, but the final complaint against her that ends up being the nail in her coffin.
That's right. That's right. I also really enjoyed the detail that her boss has the most white person name I've ever heard, Brittany Burke. I'm sorry to all the Britneys out there, but I got a good chuckle out of that.
Yeah. She might as well be named Jane Doe. Pretty classic.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, she also gets another rejection letter for the book that she's published in her inbox. Add it to the ever-growing pile. The wedding itself ends up being a mix of awkward extended family encounters, smile more an uncle tells her, as well as a genuinely good time with food and family.
Right.
This is also where she meets and later hooks up with MCZ. After the hookup, battling a panic attack in her hotel room, Zelu sits down, and this is also the beginning of her fateful book about rusted robots. A bit later, in a subsequent chapter in this section, we find Zelu in Chicago. She's broke, she's desperate, and she finds that she has to move back in with her parents, but she continues to somewhat obsessively write this book. She delays any attempts at finding another job, much to the chagrin of her parents.
Truly.
But in their own way, they're supportive, pushy, of course, in a way that I think most children of immigrants will pretty immediately recognize.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No denying that.
Been there.
For sure. Later, Zelu takes a ride in an autonomous vehicle, and it's her first glimpse of how technology can free her from human judgment. For Zelu, automation ends up equaling autonomy. These robot drivers, they don't pity, control, or stare at her, much in the way that her family and strangers might.
Right.
She eventually completes Rusted Robots, and her agent is over the moon. Suddenly, Zelu is swept up in bidding wars, 7-figure book deals, and speaking gigs. Her entire life is turned around on the success of this book, and she finally feels like she's being seen and heard.
Wow.
This is somewhat short-lived as the triumphant feelings quickly begin to fade as she becomes a public figure and suddenly everyone has an opinion about her and the story she's written. The tension is exemplified in a pretty awkward interview, to say the least, with journalist Seth Daniels.
Another super white person name.
For sure. Who begins asking probing questions about why she was fired from the university.
Ooh.
Which she had thought she was able to put behind her.
Right.
One day, she gets an email from Dr. Hugo Wagner, a researcher at MIT, who offers to build her exoskeleton legs. He's also an amputee with bionic legs himself.
Wow.
This is a pretty significant turning moment for her, and one that clearly her family isn't quite prepared to receive.
Yeah.
Just before she has a chance to tell him, we get this kind of interlude where we're given a flashback to the incident that paralyzed Zelu from the waist down. a moment when she, in a game of effectively tag or
Right.
kind of chase, I'm not quite sure.
A little bit of beat someone up for no reason,
Yeah.
It's
Classic,
like take tag, but make it violent. A very classic,
yes.
like, kid thing to do.
Exactly. And during the game, while evading some of the people chasing after, she climbs a tree and unfortunately falls down.
Yeah.
In any case, we flash back to the present day and we see Zelu actually meeting with Dr. Wagner. She's instantly starstruck by him, charmed by the story that he relays to her about the benefits of the exoskeleton and kind of the life-changing advances that are seemingly on the horizon and available to her.
Right.
He charms her and he's able to convince her to come to MIT despite some initial hesitation she has. But when Zelu goes to tell her family of this decision, not a single person supports it.
This chapter
does not go well.
Yeah.
Pretty tough. Everyone is clearly concerned and is against it, but seemingly out of a sense of protection and caution towards her. Doesn't go over very well for her, but she is disappointed to find that she's essentially the only backer.
It's tough. It's tough. There was a line in this chapter that really got me where she thinks something about how her mother loves her so much, but love isn't always enough.
Right.
And that got me. I was like, Jesus Christ. I feel so attacked and so seen. Yeah. That's the kind of line you can only write when you've grown up with a family like this, when you've grown up with sort of like that immigrant background and you have parents and extended family and even siblings who don't always agree with the decisions you make.
Yeah.
But they still love you. They would still be in the hospital room sleeping on the bench next to you.
Definitely. There's another line kind of similarly a little further on where she says, quote, "You all should be giving me the strength I don't have."
Yes.
Because I'm terrified. I can't do this alone. And it just, it absolutely hits, She's like, she recognizes like her limitations and in this moment, her family isn't quite there to back her.
Yeah, this is a real difficult thing. I mean, gosh, like part of growing up is realizing that like your family and in particular, oftentimes your parents can't always and won't always be there for you in the exact ways that you need.
Right.
And that's a sort of really tough thing to square as you get older. You realize like in some ways your parents can never help you with certain things.
Right.
That's tough because as a child, your parents are gods. They can do everything and anything for you.
Right.
And eventually you sort of shed that feeling and have to come to terms with it. Really powerful chapter. That chapter 17 really hit me like a truck for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's layer 1. Let's talk about layer 2. This is the Rusted Robots novel, the actual novel that Zelu writes and the novel that makes her a millionaire and makes her famous and changes her entire life. So here's the story of the novel. It tells the story of a humanoid robot named Ankara, who is a scholar seeking to gather the remnants of human stories. Ankara lives in this far future Earth where humanity has perished or disappeared or left altogether, and only autonomy, capital A autonomy, exists. Just a bunch of leftover robots and AI that humanity created and left behind. On its adventures, Ankara eventually meets another robot named Nnedi the Spider, who's this huge robot in the shape of a spider. And Ankara learns some terrible info. Nnedi tells Ankara that a faction of Chargers, these exploration robots out in space, attempted to dive into the sun and were thus transformed and turned into what Nnedi now calls trippers. They carry within them some sort of like nuclear plasma, and they're hell-bent on returning back to Earth with this nuclear plasma, which presumably would be destructive. It sounds like they're basically just like nuclear bombs who are headed back to Earth from the sun. And they're headed back pretty soon, actually. The troopers are going to arrive on Earth in a mere 1,008 days. That's just under 3 years. And now it's up to Ankara to go to the Hume robot leadership in their capital city and warn them of this danger.
Right.
Now, in the story, we also learn of this civil war taking place within Autonomy, the Society of Robots. You have your artificial intelligences called ghosts who actually despise humanity and hate human stories. And on the other side, you have the Humes, like Ankara, the humanoid robots who love these stories, who cherish them, who want to collect them and preserve them forever. And these two factions are essentially at war with each other. The war takes a turn when the ghosts create and send out this signal to every robot on the planet, forcing their programming to attack and eliminate any Humes nearby. Ankara itself is nearly beaten to death by nearby robots who suddenly pounce on it, but wakes up in the home of Ngozi, who turns out to be the last human alive on Earth. This old woman Ngozi who saves this robot and patches it up and repairs it. Ngozi gives Ankara new legs. Again, some really strong parallels here to Zelu herself. And in order to actually fix Ankara's corrupted code, Ngozi has to upload a ghost that she captured, Ijele. And she uploads this ghost directly into Ankara's code, into its core. And so now these two mortal enemies from these two opposing factions share one form. They're stuck in one body. Now, the last couple of chapters we haven't talked about are these interview chapters. This is the third layer of this story. It's unclear at what point in the timeline these interviews are taking place. So far, my guess is like near future, a few years, maybe a decade. But these are presumably being recorded or were recorded by the journalist Seth Daniels, who began to follow and sort of report on Zelu's life. And we get 3 of them in today's assigned reading. The book actually opens with Chinyere, the love of my life, who is the eldest sibling. And Chinyere tells this story about the one time late at night where she had got a call from a very high Zelu, had to go pick her up from a diner, had to deal with boy trouble that Zelu was having. Right. And Chinyere's verdict on Zelu is pretty harsh. Chinyere says that her younger sister, she does damage. She lets it go, and then she leaves everyone else reeling, leaves everyone else to pick up the pieces. Zelu's father is another interview where he spends most of the time telling this story about dolphins from when he was young and how he swam with dolphins at one point. And he reveals that this is a story that he used to tell his kids all the time, and most of them were pretty bored with it, but Zelu was always enraptured by all the stories that her father told. She's always had an appreciation for storytelling, and especially after her accident where she lost the use of her legs, this story of swimming and floating freely with the dolphins in the infinite ocean kind of took on a new symbolic meaning for her. It began to represent this idea of freedom.
Right.
And then finally, the last chapter here to wrap up our summaries. The last interview chapter is from her younger sister, Amarachi, who spends a lot of the interview talking about what it's like being a Nigerian American. She talks about the food. She talks about the goat experience, how every Nigerian American sees a goat get slaughtered. She talks about how the family is loud and boisterous and argumentative, but loves each other just as fiercely. And she wraps up by recalling this road trip that she was on one time where her and Chinyere in the front seat began to argue so much that they pulled over and got out of the car and started yelling at each other about what radio station they were going to listen to. And the entire time, they didn't realize that Zelu was in the back seat in the middle of a panic attack. And those are 3 little snippets of this family's perspective on Zelu, which I think there's a lot of layers to unpack there too about what's going on. What do you think, Obssa? Now that we're a third of the way through the book, chapters 1 through 17, what are your thoughts and feelings on the story so far?
Yeah. Well, I guess the headline is that I'm absolutely loving the book, and there's definitely a lot of reasons for that. A few that I want to elaborate a bit more on, but high level, what's working really well for me is one, narratively, it's original. There's really no mistaking this story for many or any others. I don't really find myself reaching for comparable novels to somewhat, rest my understanding on. I'm really just getting to experience this book and its world with something closer to, I think, novelty than familiarity, particularly around the structure. And I say all of that as an Ethiopian immigrant, like as an African immigrant. And, to be fair, there are aspects of the African and immigrant experience that I absolutely relate to in this book. I think that we both do. There's, for example, this line from Zelu's sister Amarachi in chapter 10, where she says, the way to Nigeria is through the stomach. And yeah, I mean, that's very familiar to me. I like the way to Ethiopia for me is, it's through the community and the kind of childhood games and the culture I grew up in. But it's also absolutely through the cuisine, and through the stomach. But I think, overall, it's really like the structure of the book that is really satisfying to me. We're basically having someone's life sketched out to us story by story, and it feels very human and flawed and biased and analog in so many ways that just feels valuable. There's a really telling line from the book that I think captures the ethos and somewhat intent of that really well. It's when Nnedi Okorafor is writing of the one thing that Zelu withheld from the robots in her book. And she says, quote, "The one thing no robot could do was truly create stories."
Yeah.
And I think, ultimately this book for me, The Death of the Author, is a triumph of human storytelling. Like these 17 chapters, we obviously broke up as kind of in 3 layers that we could examine, but it's really 17 distinct individual stories, really. This is a collection of stories about the people and the characters that inhabit Zelu's world, which is what I think I'm kind of really enjoying about this. I think at my last count, there are 31 characters that are introduced in just these first 17 chapters, with enough detail that they feel distinct and real. Yeah. And, altogether that this is making for a novel that I just find so much depth and kind of richness to. So I'm, all to say, I guess, I'm honestly loving this book so far. But super curious where your head's at after these first 17 chapters.
No, I'm pretty much there with you. I'm really liking this book too. I think I'm a little bit colder, maybe like 10% colder on it than you, but that's more about my sort of personal hangups than I think a reflection of the actual book itself. But let me start with what I'm liking, because I'm really enjoying this book. I'm not quite loving this book yet, but I can very much see myself growing warmer and warmer as we continue reading. For starters, I'm loving the Rusted Robots chapters. Like, oh my God, give me all of those Rusted Robot chapters, right?
Totally.
Like, these are by far my favorite chapters of the book so far in this first section. I'm totally enraptured by this future world that Zelu / Nnedi Okorafor have built. This world of robots and Kara, I love. Udidi, so interesting. This like spider who created its own little cave in Lagos. Yeah. That was such a cool visual. This like civil war and the tension and the philosophy between the Humes and the nobodies, like that's very much my shit. So
for sure,
I'm very on board with the Rusted Robots chapters and loving that part of the story. In addition to that, I'm also just really loving the big themes and ideas that this book is just like tackling right away. Like we're grappling with the realities of someone who's paraplegic, dealing with the like small, sometimes even unintended like microaggressions constantly, to like the nuances of Nigerian culture, which I'm really appreciating. So I really appreciate that this book is just not shying away from grappling with very difficult things and grappling with them head on in very difficult ways. I admire that. In addition to that, the interview chapters I'm finding really juicy. Like the mystery of like framing this book in a way where what happens to Zelu is this big mystery, and we see like sort of what happened before, what happened after, but we don't quite know the exact details yet. And it's working. The mystery is absolutely working. I want it to be solved. I'm so antsy to keep reading and find out. So all of that is really, really working for me, and I'm enjoying those parts of the book for sure. To quickly touch on just a couple of things that are just not clicking with me, and again, these say more about me than they say about the book. I think choosing to do a story within a story is a difficult and risky thing to try and pull off in your novel, because I think just inherently it invites internal comparison. I can't help but compare the Rusted Robot chapters to the Zelu chapters. And unfortunately, what's happening is I'm loving the Rusted Robot chapters so much that I'm finding myself a little bored with the Zelu chapters and wanting to just get back to Nkara and to Udidi and to Ngozi and to Ijele, you know? So I think that is handled pretty well in the story, but for me, again, it's causing this like sort of compare and contrast the two halves of this story and kind of giving one more weight than the other. And I just can't help myself from doing that. Speaking of the Zelu chapters, though, I do think these Zelu chapters are a mixed bag for me. Some of them are so good. And the others, like the autonomous drive around the city in the vehicle, I was just kind of like fast forwarding through, you know, like I am not loving every single Zelu chapter. And I think a lot of that, unfortunately, is because I don't really like Zelu as a person. I think she's a really well-written character, a very three-dimensional, fully fleshed out character. It's not the writing that's bothering me. It's literally who she is as a person. I'm just not vibing with, you know? And again, that's fine. You don't have to like every single character you read in a book, but it's just making her chapters a bit of a slog for me to get through. I will say, as we get further into the book, especially once we got her backstory with the flashback chapter, once we got that confrontation, the MIT confrontation with the family, I am starting to warm up to Zelu and really sort of feel for some of the struggles that she's going through. So I'm hoping that continues to happen, and maybe by the end of the book, I will be fully Team Zelu. For now, though, I know I joked about it earlier. I'm fully Team Chinyere. Like, if I looked at this like large Nigerian family and tried to put myself in it, I am Chinyere through and through. I am the eldest sibling who was parentified really young, and the one who has to always have it all together, and the one who people call when they're in trouble and need picked up, you know? And so that's who I'm identifying with more, and so I just can't help but also be a bit judgy of Zelu, just like Chinyere is a bit judgy of Zelu.
Well, let's not forget also that famously you also get drunk and twerk at weddings. You know, that's like on whoever is closest to you.
I mean, anyone.
You have to cut loose, you know?
You have to. You know, again, when you're wound so tight, you go to a wedding and suddenly you got to twerk.
Oh, yes.
That's true. That's a little known fact about me. Again, regardless of these hangups, which again, I want to reiterate are personal hangups, I think the book itself is so well written and so well crafted. Some of these things are just not sort of ringing my bell as much as they might with others. Regardless of all of that, I'm still very excited to see where things go, and I can't wait to keep reading.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would maybe add there is I'm definitely finding that I'm benefiting a lot from having read the chapters more than once, you know? Admittedly, the first time through, I wasn't immediately captivated, but I think maybe about halfway through the first read, and then definitely on the second read for this episode, I found myself increasingly enamored with the book. And it's definitely, I will say, it's definitely a book that rewards effort and just like really taking the time to try to unpack and understand kind of the meta of it, which we're obviously going to get into. One observation I'll make is that that I noticed on my second read through was all of the chapters in the interviews and in the snippets from the Rusted Robots book. They're all told from the first person point of view. Anytime we're in Zelu's perspective, it's third person. And so there's some kind of structurally interesting, intriguing things that the author is doing there, where we're never actually taking Zelu's perspective as our own fully.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we're both having her life sort of told to us through the perspective of other people in these interviews, via comparison in the Rusted Robots book. But then even when we're getting her perspective, it's still outside of her perspective. It's third person.
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh.
there's something I think that's, the experience you're having where you're kind of challenged to appreciate Zelu or understand her, I think is very intentional. As a reader, you aren't ever actually in her shoes. So it's there's something I think very satisfying and impressive about that Nnedi Okorafor is able to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think you're absolutely spot on. And we're about to get into our meta-analysis of this book. And what's interesting is this whole book is just multiple layers of meta. It's meta about being meta,
Yes,
you know?
Totally.
So we're going to talk about Nnedi Okorafor and the publication of this book. And I think it's going to become very clear to our listeners how many layers there truly are to all of this.
Yeah.
So actually, let's take a quick break. And folks, when we come back, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to get into the meta and break down the history of the author and this book's publication. We'll see you in a minute.
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come experience the beauty that awaits in Scotland. The sweep of wild coastlines, quiet lochs, and untamed landscapes. Fresh cuisine that feels rooted in the land. Come experience the kind of stillness that stays with you long after you leave. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
Welcome back, folks. Okay, as always, when we start a new book, we like to break down the author's career and learn about how the book came together, how it was received, what awards it's won, et cetera, just because all of that context, I think, really helps our conversations. So let's do exactly that today for Nnedi Okorafor and Death of the Author.
So Nnedi Okorafor was born 1974 in Cincinnati to Igbo Nigerian parents who came to the U.S. in 1969 and couldn't return because of the Nigerian Civil War. She was raised in the Chicago suburbs, but spent many summers and vacations in Nigeria with her family. In high school, she was a nationally ranked tennis and track athlete who wanted to be an entomologist. However, at 13, she was diagnosed with scoliosis, and 6 years later, at 19, she had a spinal fusion surgery that went wrong. A rare complication left her paralyzed from the waist down. And it was while recovering in the hospital and regaining the use of her legs that she started writing short stories.
Wow.
Though she was never able to return to her athletic career, a friend suggested she take a creative writing class, and she was already writing her first novel by the end of the semester.
Wow. Gosh, I mean, that alone right there, explains the Zelu hospital chapter, explains the Zelu accident. The autobiographical nature of this story is actually quite shocking once you learn about Nnedi Okorafor's life.
Totally.
It's only going to get more shocking, folks. So Okorafor then goes on after high school to earn just a slew of degrees. This is one educated woman, to be clear.
Oh, yeah.
She has a bachelor's from the University of Illinois, and then after that, she sought out some higher degrees. She got a master's in journalism from Michigan State. Then she got a master's of English literature from Illinois, and followed that up with a PhD in creative writing from the University of Illinois. So degrees on degrees on degrees. Also, we need to mention this, and at this point, I have so many questions. Okorafor in 2001 graduated from the goddamn Clarion Writers Workshop.
Oh my God.
Just 4 years before her first book would be published in 2005. Yeah. Obssa, what the fuck is in the punch bowl at the Clarion Writers Workshop?
I don't know, but it's clearly working.
Oh my gosh, the number of times this workshop comes up whenever we cover a book is just wild.
Absolutely.
Incredible. I mean, this is just like the open secret, folks. If you want to be a successful sci-fi author, you need to get into this workshop and drink whatever the fuck is in that punch bowl.
Totally. It's like a Hugo, Nebula, Locust, Mill, you know?
That's right. Oh my God. Is there? I swear there's got to be blood sacrifices happening or something. Anyway, she graduates from that workshop. She gets all these degrees. She then serves as an associate professor at Chicago University until 2014. Following that, she teaches at University of New York at Buffalo until 2017. And currently, Okorafor is a professor of practice at Arizona State University and resides in Phoenix, Arizona with her family.
That's right. Okorafor notably writes Africanfuturism. You found this on Twitter, Abu. She wrote, "Stop calling my work Afrofuturist. It is not."
In all caps, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. She coined that term, Africanfuturism, in a 2019 essay because Afrofuturism kept mislabeling her work. She defines it as science fiction, quote, directly rooted in African culture, history, mythology, and point of view. And it does not privilege or center the West, end quote. Her own example, which I think is actually a great one, quote, Afrofuturism. Wakanda builds its first outpost in Oakland. Africanfuturism. Wakanda builds its first outpost in a neighboring African country.
I mean, perfect example. You know, that defines the nuance there clearly, draws that line.
Yeah. And that word ended up entering the Historical Dictionary of Science Fiction in 2022.
That's right. So there you go, folks. When you're reading Okorafor, remember, you're reading Africanfuturism, not Afrofuturism. Now, speaking of Okorafor's novels and her writing career, she is wildly successful, folks. I mean, it's just out of this world. Her first published book was actually a YA novel in 2005. But ever since, my God, she has written dozens of short stories and YA novels and adult novels and comics, essays. Her writing is all over the place. And she has been awarded for much of her writing, rightfully so. She honestly has an award shelf that many writers would kill for. The first novella, for example, in her Binti trilogy, earned her both a Hugo and a Nebula. Her graphic novel LaGuardia won her another Hugo in 2020. She won a Locus in 2018 for her YA novel Akata Warrior. And as we said earlier in the episode, Death of the Author, the book we are talking about today, won a Locus and an NAACP Image Award this year, just weeks before we're recording.
Wow.
And Death of the Author is up for Best Novel at the Hugos this year in 2026. We'll find out later in August whether she wins that award and adds it to the shelf.
Yeah. Death of the Author has, of course, become an international bestseller. It's finding its way onto numerous best of lists. Just to unpack the title a little bit, the book is her counter-argument of Roland Barthes' 1967 essay, The Death of the Author, in which he argues that the author's identity and intent should be irrelevant when interpreting the text.
I have so many thoughts on that. We'll have to save that for a bonus episode.
That's right. Clearly, she disagrees.
Clearly.
Okorafor started writing the book 2 days after her sister actually passed away in 2020.
Wow.
She told CBC it was as a way to deal with it. That gave me the courage because I needed courage to write this one. There's so much of my actual family and me and all of my life in this book, and it was scary. And to do that, grief pulled me through it.
Wow.
So yes, she definitely poured much of herself into the book. She's told a few outlets, including Popverse, this is my most personal autobiographical work. It's fiction, but it's taken from me. And she went on to say that the family dynamics are near autobiographical, which is interesting because she's definitely putting a lot of family members on blast then.
I know, right? That was my entire thought, too. I read that quote and I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah, I want to know who the Amarachi is of her family.
Right, which sister is Amarachi?
Totally.
Yeah. But again, I think both you and I, something we both are identifying with this book is just the immigrant experience, just the yeah, our parents talk to us like this. It's hard to explain to white people how and why our parents talk like this, but it just is. You know, it's like loving. They would like, you know, take a bullet for you, but at the same time, they're going to be like, did you apply to a job? You didn't? I don't love you anymore, and I'm disappointed in you, you know? And it's like, that's just normal. That just happens.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, like, you don't capture that in a story without it being autobiographical to some extent, right? Like, in order for this to feel authentic in the way it does on the page, of course, it's drawn from her own family, drawn from her own experiences. And I think that's something I'm personally really identifying with. And I appreciate and applaud her for doing that, because that is, like she says in that quote, that is a scary thing to do, to pull so much from your own life and put it on the page and put it out there for criticism, right? Because then critics get their hands on this book and they start sharing their own thoughts and spouting nonsense.
Right.
Like me.
Such an autobiographical take there.
Wow. That's fascinating. I'm definitely going to be keeping all of this in mind as we continue reading and relating it back to Okorafor and some of the trajectory of her own life, you know?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating stuff. And I think it's interesting to see then the meta layers that we were talking about earlier, right? The meta within the meta within the meta. And Kara is just a reflection of Zelu, right? Zelu is a reflection of Okorafor. And we're just sort of seeing her rebuttal to Roland Barthes' essay. When you write, you reflect part of yourself into the story. You can't strip the author away from the story. It's ridiculous to try and do that. That is sort of the counter argument I think Okorafor is making here.
Yeah, it's interesting to think if you tried removing anything personal from this novel, what would be left?
What's left
is honestly an empty book. Like this is such a personal, kind of intimate novel. That you really do feel like, you know, Nnedi is letting you kind of take a glimpse into her own life.
Yeah, and I for one appreciate it.
Certainly. All
right, folks. So that is today's episode. That is our thoughts and feelings on the first 17 chapters of this book and a little bit about the author and the publication history of Death of the Author. We have homework for you, as always. There's more reading to be done for the next episode of Science Fiction Book Club. Make sure that you've read chapters 18 to 35 of this book. That is roughly the next third of the book. And if you're ever wondering, hey, how do I know what chapters I'm supposed to be reading and when I have to have them read by and when your next episode is going to be, check out the link in the show notes below to our schedule. That is a simple web page that is always up to date with all of the books we're reading and when we'll be reading them and when chapters are due and all that good stuff. So check out that webpage, bookmark it so you can always reference it, and it will always be up to date.
That's right. Well, friends, we are mortal beings. We die, but we live first. So remember to live and remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I don't know what we're doing these days. But in any case, be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at lore_party. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, stories are the greatest currency to us, greater than power, greater than control.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 5-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 50% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.